And yeah, we're recording. Great. All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Sharp Again Naturally's small group coaching program. And I apologize if you hear my dog whining in the background. He's whining, wanting my husband and my son to come in from digging us out of the snow. Anyway, so welcome to today's webinar on Sharp Again Naturally's small group coaching program. And my name is Myra Oni, and I'm here today with my fellow coach, Steve Ledvina, to go over the SharperMind program with you and to answer any questions that you might have. So to start off with, we would like to thank you for being with us today. We know that there are a lot of other things you could be doing with your time, and we also know that it can be very hard to acknowledge to yourself that you might be having memory issues and to be proactive in finding out more about how you can help yourself. So congratulations on being here. So my name is Myra Oni, as I said, and I am a coach in the upcoming program. I'm a health and wellness coach specializing in healthy aging. I'm a graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and a certified life coach through the group Intrinsic Coaching. I've been in practice since 2012. I became interested in memory and brain health when I was caring for my parents, who both suffered from vascular dementia. Steve?
And I'm Steve Ledvina. Let me spotlight myself for a second. I'm also a health coach. I specialize in brain health. I work one-on-one with clients as well as work with the small group program here at Sharp Again. I'm also a board member with Sharp Again Naturally. And I think my background as far as why I work in brain health is probably similar reasons to many of us. My family has been heavily impacted by dementia over the years. 3 of my 4 grandparents had dementia, and so we spent many years caregiving, and now I'm kind of dedicating myself to working to help my family, myself, and other families in the work. And some of you may have heard of the Bredesen protocol or RECODE, and I'm a practitioner in that as well. So one tiny piece of housekeeping, and that's just that we do not give medical advice as health coaches. Our scope of practice is strict, and we're not licensed healthcare professionals. You might ask, well, then what is a health coach? A health coach is a trained professional. We work one-to-one with clients in a group or in a one-to-one with clients or in a group setting. And really our goal is to empower our clients to make lasting changes to their health. That's building habits, obtaining knowledge, and really creating a lifestyle that supports whatever your health goals are. So back to you. And so what are we talking about today? Myra already introduced, we're talking about the groups, but there's kind of 3 key takeaways. One, basically the same takeaway we always want here, which is that the causes of cognitive decline and dementia are often lifestyle and environmentally driven. Just to tee up what exactly we work on in the small group, it's focused mainly on the kind of 6 different lifestyle factors: sleep, nutrition, exercise, mental stimulation, and stress and social activity. Those are probably things you've heard many times, things you work on in your own life, and that's really the focus, which brings me to the second key takeaway. That's being proactive helps prevent the dementia and build brain health. Kind of same idea. The final piece is we all have probably worked really hard on those different factors at different points and are more or less successful in different areas. But the bottom line is combining everything into one lifestyle at the same time can be a very complex and difficult task. Understanding the science, trying to implement habits, all of those things is tough. And so that's where coaching and the group support really comes in. And we've seen that support and that coaching, both one-to-one and in group, really help enable people to make big changes in their life and see big results in their life as well. So just to take a half a step back, for anyone who's new to the group, who are we? Who is Sharp Again Naturally? We're, we think, a unique nonprofit that does a number of different things around dementia and brain health prevention. We educate the public and medical community We empower everyone to take charge of their own cognitive health and also general well-being because they're interlinked. We support lifestyle changes that can improve cognition or may slow or reverse memory loss. And those changes are all based on a multi-therapeutic, research-backed approach that is kind of in line with the major organizations in this area. And we also partner with like-minded professionals and organizations on these endeavors. So back to you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the small group program specifically and address some questions that we have had in the past. So one of the first questions that a lot of people often ask is, how is a small group program different from a webinar? So the webinars are, which many of you may have been on, a Sharper Again Naturally webinar. So the webinar is basically a one-time presentation with health experts that are offering you information on how lifestyle choices can affect your memory. The goal of the webinar is to educate. In the small group program, we meet for 6 sessions over an 8-week period, and we have the same group each week. The focus is on the individual participant and their needs and their goals. The goal is to bridge the gap between education and implementation. In other words, to help the participants take what they have learned or what they may already know and put it into practice in their own life. And another question that we get is, what if I don't know what changes I need to make? Can you help me with that? Well, yes, we can. Before the program begins, you have a one-on-one consultation with either myself or Steve. And one of the things we discuss as we're getting to know you is what your needs are. And we help you start thinking about where you might want to make changes. We also encourage you to do your own research, to see your doctor if that seems to be indicated. And we provide you with information sources in a private library that you will have access to. Now, we know that making big changes can be hard, but when you break it down into small, doable steps, well, that adds up over time. And we actually help you do that. That's one of the big things we do in the program. And one of the big things the coaches do is we help you break down a big goal into small steps. And you get support from your coaches and your fellow group members at each meeting. At each meeting, we help hold you accountable for each step that you take. When you have this kind of friendly, ongoing support, it makes it a lot easier to make those changes and to even have fun. So, can you give me an example of how this might work? Sure. So let's say that on your doctor's recommendation, you saw a nutritionist. The nutritionist gave you a diet plan to follow, but you're finding it hard to stick to. So something that you might have as a goal for this program would be to achieve, say, 50% or more compliance with the diet that the nutritionist gave you by the end of this program. So then what we would do is you would look at the diet and decide what small changes you could make to start moving towards that goal. Implementing those changes would be your game plan. And at our weekly meeting, you would let us know how you did, what worked, what didn't work, and what, if anything, you might want to do differently. And at every meeting, we always celebrate all the wins, no matter how small they are. So what kind of results might you expect to see from doing the program? Well, the results you get, no big surprise, are really up to you and how much you put into doing the program. Now, big changes happen slowly over time. And I think one of the biggest things that people get from this program is learning the skills to make lifestyle changes for yourself. This is incredibly empowering to know that you have the ability to keep moving forward and keep making these positive changes even after the program is over. Okay, how can you get the most out of the program? Well, one of the big questions is, who is this program right for? So the small group program is good for people who have just started noticing memory issues. Things like forgetting where they put their keys or people's names, enough so that they're actually noticing it, that it's a difference in that your memory pattern is different than it used to be. You're noticing these things about yourself more often. And at this stage, it's much easier to make lifestyle changes and the results are much more effective. Now, if you're a caregiver for someone who's having memory issues, participating can be equally valuable for you. Statistics show that the spouses caring for a husband or wife with dementia have a 600% greater increase in risk of developing dementia themselves. So the better you're able to take care of yourself, the less likely you are to develop severe memory problems as a result of being a caregiver. One of the big things that will help you get the most out of the program is to show up. Commit to being at all of the meetings as well as best you can. Even if you don't feel you've accomplished anything in the course of the week, showing up is 99% of being successful. And yes, we do record all of the meetings because we know that things come up and you just can't make it. And the meetings are available to you. The recordings are available to you in your vault. One of the big things is to be able and willing to make small, doable changes. So it's important to understand that this is not a passive program. And in order for it to work for you, you need to be willing to do the work to start making the changes. Now, this might sound challenging for you. It's one of the things I've been talking about, that we are there to help support you in making these changes. But the biggest thing is that as you start to feel better, you'll be really glad you made the effort. And the other thing is that we have noticed that people who have a support system do the best in this program. So what that means is they have the support of family and friends, and that always is a very, very helpful thing. But not only that, but often as you start improving your lifestyle and people around you start seeing the changes, they begin to improve their own lifestyle as well. So what can you expect from us? What you can expect from us, first of all, is friendly, non-judgmental, very important support in helping you identify and reach your goals. And and as well as from your fellow group members. We all are there to support you. Steve and I will be presenting at each session. We'll present short educational pieces on topics that are relevant to the group and to the goals people have set. So the topics will be driven by the group's needs and interests and will, of course, be available to you in your vault. And the last thing, and possibly most importantly, is strict confidentiality. So what happens in the group and is said in the group stays in the group. No portions of the meetings where the group members are identifiable will ever be released publicly. And we ask members not to share meeting links or to talk about sessions outside of the group. So now Steve is going to talk about some of the lifestyle factors that affect brain health that we address in the group and that a participant might want to consider when deciding where they want to go to work.
Yeah, thank you, Myra. So I mentioned these earlier, but I breezed right through them just to kind of tee it up. But now let's dive into kind of a little bit more detail, but not too much. So what are the 6 factors? And I'll include kind of the highest level basic recommendation for each. So sleep, very easy, simple, 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, but we'll save the discussion for when you join the small group. Nutrition, very complex topic, but the most boiled down version of it is getting a vegetable heavy Mediterranean type diet. Exercise, a combination of aerobic, so that's walking, running, jogging, biking, swimming, weight training, and stability exercises. That could be yoga or Pilates or something of that. And for about 180 minutes a week, you might mix in something called high intensity interval training as well, depending on your situation. Mental activity, really you want to be stretching your brain in some way, learning a new skill, hobby, potentially brain training if that sort of thing is of interest to you. Stress is a major factor in some of the mechanisms of harm for your brain. So meditating or using any stress management technique that works for you, that could be going for a walk or doing a breathing exercise or reading a book. And then staying socially active. This is especially important this year where social interaction is just significantly more difficult. There's a lot more friction, but finding ways to kind of stay socially active really helps light up the brain in all of these ways. We're social beings. And so staying socially active is imperative to brain health. And so with that, those are kind of the 6 big topics. The thing about each of these is, I think an important thing to set up the group and why we think the group is so important is each of these can be, there's a 10-second version, which is what I just gave you, a 5-minute discussion, an hour-long discussion, and entire books and textbooks and PhDs written on these topics. And so our goal is to give you the bite-sized piece here, discuss it in the group so you have a good understanding of why you would implement it in your life, but really give you just enough of the science so that you can start implementing changes in your life. We can all learn forever, but the biggest thing is the knowledge is helpful, but without making a change, the knowledge isn't necessarily helping you yet. And so the group is structured so that you get the knowledge, but then the support to make those healthy brain changes in these lifestyle factors.
Okay, Steve, thank you so much. And now we're just going to leave this slide up for a minute. And because to wrap up this part of the webinar, before we start doing Q&A with you, we wanted to give you an idea of what it might be like to participate in the program, what the goal setting process is, if you will. So if you have a pen and pencil, piece of paper handy, you can write this down. We're not doing the slide on it, or you can just listen and think for yourself as I'm kind of going through this. And we aren't going to ask you to share any of this information, so don't worry about that. So the first question is, looking here at this slide, is there a specific area related to your health that you think you need to improve on? So the second question would be, what is one goal that you could set in that area for, we're saying this coming year, but it might be a shorter time frame, might be over the next 6 months. What's one area, what's one thing in this area that you would like to set a goal in? And then the next step would be, what are 3 steps that you might begin to take that would help you get there? So I'm going to give you a short example about this. So let's say that your goal, let's say that you have high blood sugar, and your goal is that you want to reduce your sugar intake by 50% over the next 3 months. So most people eat most sugar at breakfast and in the late afternoon. So let's say that for breakfast, you usually use 3 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee. Well, one step that you could start to do would be to reduce that to 2 teaspoons. And maybe you usually have a large blueberry muffin from the local bakery with your breakfast. So you could decide to substitute that with a small piece of whole grain toast and a bowl of blueberries. And maybe at 3 o'clock, when you start to feel tired, as a snack, you usually have a couple of cookies and a glass of orange juice. So in order to reduce your sugar when you snack, you decide instead to have some hummus and carrot sticks and a cup of tea sweetened with a little bit of honey or stevia. So as you can see, that's taking a big goal, reducing sugar, a big goal of improving your nutrition and breaking it down to reducing sugar, and then breaking that down into 3 steps that you could start doing this week that could help you reach that goal. And that's the kind of work we do. Now, the other thing is that there's what you're doing, and there's how you feel about what you're doing, which is another big piece that we haven't talked about yet, but that we do work with on you, is what is it inside of you that's making it so important for you to do this work? And a couple of questions you can ask yourself around this is, what would my life be like if I made these changes? And what might be the consequences if I don't make these changes? And then the last thing that I want to ask you before we go to our Q&A is, would you be more likely to be able to make these changes with the support and accountability of a small group of like-minded people and professional coaches, or are you okay doing it on your own? Okay, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Myra. So I think that exercise combined with the idea that we're kind of providing some of the science and knowledge education around what goals are really going to give you the brain impact, and then imagining doing that in the context of a small group where you're hearing about other people working on their brain health and what their successes are and what their struggles are. That collaborative environment, it's kind of the whole process of trying to really make progress on brain health in a supportive environment, both from the knowledge gaining and also from the execution. So that is a good picture of what the groups are like. What is the program specifically? We've kind of talked in these general terms. What are the nuts and bolts? So Myra already alluded to, there's 2 one-on-one consultations with either Myra or myself. Those are kind of the bookends to the program. That we do one at the beginning to set you up and really learn personally about you, what your current goals are, what your health priorities, situation, kind of all of those things. We want to get to know you individually. And then there's the 6 75-minute group coaching calls. Those are at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. They're on Zoom, just like this. And we've found that we've been really able to make kind of an intimate in-person environment in those, and that our groups in the past have kind of really bonded and become close over the program. Then after those 6 is another one-to-one consultation with Myra or myself again. It'll be with the same person, and that's to set you up for kind of wrap everything from the program in a bow and make sure that you have the support and kind of foundation that you need to stay successful in the long term outside of the group. Then, we've talked a number of times, there's brain health education, brain health and dementia prevention education as part of each group session, support during gap weeks. The way this is structured is for the first month, we do once every week, and for the second month, they're every other week. So there are 2 gap weeks, and so you'll have support during those. And then finally, there's access to the group recordings from the past if you want to go back and look at some piece of science or information that we talked about. There's also previous expert recordings. We've had a lot of really great people as guests in our webinars and talked about a lot of different subjects, and so those are good resources. And then there's just a whole slew of resources for anyone who wants to pursue kind of a little bit of extra detail knowledge. Oh, I want to actually understand the research on this. Oh, I would like kind of this tool or that tool. We've made that. And the really great thing, and Myra talked about this for a second, is that we're tailoring this to the interests of the group. So if you have a particular piece of nutrition that you want to understand more about, Myra and I probably know a good bit about that, but we also know where to look, and we're happy, and we have done this many times and love it. Go grab a little bit of information, make a resource, find the best thing. A lot of times that path to the knowledge is half the battle, and we can make that a very quick learning experience. 2 important dates. One, the registration deadline is February 8th. The first group session is February 16th. And the reason the registration deadline is a week ahead is because we want to have those one-to-one sessions before the first group session. And then the program price is $249. So again, here's the 2 ways that you can start by joining the group. Or start to join the group. You can either email sharperminds@sharpagain.org or register on sharpagain.org. And if she hasn't already, I think Sue will probably drop the email or the registration link into the chat. And so that's nice and easy. You also receive it via the follow-up email if that is easier for you. And I think finally we're down to the Q&A. So please, we tried to give you kind of the best picture of the group, but we aren't always sure what questions people have, what's left kind of fuzzy from our presentation of things. I also know there's at least one member of the group here. So if they wanted to chime in with anything, they're more than welcome to do that. Here's Myra and my direct email. So if you have an individual question for one of us or just would want to kind of talk things through, we're more than happy to work through that as well. So with that.